What's up, everybody? Welcome to Take No Offense. A couple of old friends who grew up together in central Pennsylvania. Now we live on opposite sides of the country. This is our chance to get together once a week to share our thoughts on politics, sports, TV, and movies. I'm Eric Messersmith in the Los Angeles area. Brian Johnson is there in suburban Washington, D.C. What's up, buddy?
Not much, dude. I didn't put our last show on YouTube because I made a little bit of a, I don't know if you would call it an off-color comment. So I had a statement if you would give me time to read it here at the beginning.
Oh, of course. You know, that is what the beginning of the show is for. Get anything off your chest.
I just want to say if I have hurt anyone out there, I can't tell you how much I say from the bottom of my heart. I'm so very, very sorry. I pride myself and think of myself as a man of faith. As there's a drive in the deep left field by Castellanos, it'll be a home run. And so that'll make it a 4-0 ball game.
I almost feel like we shouldn't even tell people what you're talking about. If you know, you know. Let's just leave it at that. That was well done. All right, Brian. Let's more serious notes.
Yes.
So we have now another week that has gone by since you and I have done this show, and Joe Biden is still the Democratic nominee. He says he's not dropping out. He called into Morning Joe on MSNBC today, said he's not dropping out. He said it over and over again in interviews and statements. There is some pressure building, but look, at the end of the day, he has the votes. And if he wants to stay in, then he can probably force his way to the nomination. Whether that's a good idea or not, we'll see. It reminds me of that. What's that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio where he's like an investment guy?
The Titanic.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh,
where he's like, he stands up and everyone's all sad and he's like, I'm not leaving. I'm not fucking leaving. And everyone starts going crazy. That's what Biden, that little meme that you see, that's Biden right now. He is not leaving. At least he says he's not. So do you think that he is going to stick this out and he's going to be able to survive this?
I mean, I don't know, dude, but I mean, I kind of went back and I listened to you and Charlie on what's the name of the podcast?
I believe it's Everybody
Settle Down.
Make sure you check it out on YouTube and podcast.
And it's interesting because when I listen to you and Charlie talk about it, like you have it in your mind like it's a foregone conclusion, like he should just drop out, and that not dropping out is some type of like bonehead play. Like he's a dope if he doesn't drop out because he's not reading the writing on the wall. And I just say that because when we did the show, I said that I think he should stay in because I think he really does give the Democrats the best chance to win. And I'm assuming based on that, I mean, you asked me a different question, but I'm assuming just as a premise, you strongly disagree with me.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think so. There's several different questions, right? If you're asking me what I think, absolutely.
No, what you're saying though is him staying in is an L. The 20%
right.
chance.
I want to be clear. There's two reasons. First of all, because you play to win the games.
You play to win if you know
the games. Edwards. Right. Herm Edwards, coach of the
New York
Bears
Jets.
He was coaching at that time.
It was the Jets.
The Jets. You play to win the games. And it all comes down to what gives you your best chance. And if you've seen the post-debate polling, it's not good. But you know what? That's not even the thing. Is the pre-debate polling was really bad. That's the problem. He's been behind all year. And I just don't think if you watch that debate, there's any realistic chance that he can do what he needs to do over the next 4 months to close that gap. Now, look, that doesn't mean he has no chance. The polls could be way off. Trump could implode. Maybe, who knows? All kinds of things could happen. So I'm not saying it's zero, but I'm saying it's like 20%. I think a generic, decent Democrat, and I would put in that category pretty much everyone that's being talked about for the nomination, which it most likely would be Harris, but anybody else that has been mentioned, Gretchen Whitmer, Gavin Newsom, I think they would start, I think, with a roughly 40% chance. And unlike Biden, they have upside. That's the thing. When you're behind, and this is what, it's like statistics. Like if you're behind, you need variance. Because if things keep going like they're going, you most likely will lose. It's why NFL teams behind in the fourth quarter abandon the running game and throw the ball, an onside kick if they have to. Because if you just play it normally and you're down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, you will lose. You have to be aggressive. You need variance. And at least with somebody else, it gives you upside. I just don't think Biden has the upside necessary. And by the way, has even more downside than we've already seen. I mean, what happens if the nomination comes and passes and they have another debate and it goes just as badly? I mean, what are they going to do then? Like, I just think it is a disaster politically for him to stay. And I think it's the wrong statistical choice if you're playing to win the games. But I also think on just a deeper level, it's just the wrong thing to do for our democracy. Like, say what you will about how compromised he may or may not be. And I've heard him in interviews since then and campaign rallies. He hasn't been nearly as bad as he was on that debate stage. Nothing like that. But he still had some, weird slips here or there. He said on a radio show in Philadelphia, he was the first black female vice president.
I heard that.
Of course, we know what he meant. He appointed the first one. With George Stephanopoulos, he said he just going to hopes he can do the goodest job possible. Stephanopoulos asked him if he watched the debate back, and he said he paused and he said, "I don't think so." And it's just like these little things make me think that the debate was not a one-off, right? So that's the problem.
But also, at one point,
if he had
George W. Bush was president. Like, we all lived through that. Well, I don't know if we all lived through that. I mean, my son didn't, but I lived through it. And I mean, he wasn't exactly a quote machine. But no one, in fairness, no one questioned his age. I mean, that's how he was.
That's how he was, right? And it's not going to get better. So it comes down to two. In addition to trying to win, there's also kind of the thing about, I don't know, who should be running our government and our democracy. Like, if you're telling me Biden's got another 6 or 7 months, I'll say, okay, I think he probably can do okay in that time period. You're telling me another 7 months plus 4 years?
Yeah.
And it's clear he doesn't understand. I just don't think so here's my point.
Oh, God.
He's likely to
Trump thing. He's too stupid to understand.
It's bad and he's likely to lose. Somebody else will give you a better chance. It's better for our country if he steps aside. Now, and I say that as someone who voted for Joe Biden and someone who thinks he did a pretty good job. But also, I don't think he can do what he needs to do to turn it around.
I don't disagree with you, but I'm saying this is a really hard thing to do. But put yourself in the position of Joe Biden. You've been in politics for 8,000 years. You've never really lost an election. All you've done is win. Every time you go for office, you win. Right? Like, if you're that old and you've never really lost before, what makes you think you're going to lose now? I mean, it's why leaders in business, they really fail to change over time. They don't really adapt. Because if you've made $1 billion doing one thing, why on God's earth would you change that? You made $1 billion. The smart thing to do, of course, is what the really, really wealthy people do is they adapt. They change. They move and shift with markets. But, dude, that's so rare. Most people are like our now president of the United States, sitting in their Oval Office, flying on Air Force One, doing whatever it is they do, having never lost any meaningful election in their lifetime, going like, what do you mean I need to drop out? All I do is win.
All I do is
you don't understand his position if you were in his position?
Oh, no, I understand it. I don't agree with it, but I understand. Look, Joe Biden, just a quick clarification. He won every Senate race. He, of course, won twice with Obama, but he ran for president twice prior and flamed out terribly. I mean, in 1988, he had to drop out because of plagiarism.
In 1988,
which is how old he is, right?
Yeah,
he ran for president in 1988, and then in of course 2008, he was an afterthought. The year that Obama.
You've never plagiarized. Be honest.
I like to say I don't plagiarize. I just borrow things from everybody.
Right. Here's the thing about plagiarism is amazing. Anyway,
here's the thing about plagiarism. If you steal from one source, it's plagiarism. But if you steal from everybody, it's called research.
That's right.
So that's really
right.
But I think he has. Look, Biden. If you know anything about his history, and most of us do, because he's been around for so long, politically and personally, he has overcome incredible blows. I mean, his wife and one of his children were killed in a car crash when he was very young. He was one of the youngest people ever elected to the Senate. He was so young when he won, he couldn't be sworn in right away because he hadn't yet had his 30th birthday, and you have to be 30 to be in the Senate. And he has come back after those disastrous presidential runs when everybody counted him out in 2020 and he got crushed in Iowa and New Hampshire and Nevada. Look, I understand why he has this narrative in his head.
I mean, it's relevant. It's irrelevant to what we're talking about.
That resilience, and he says it in his rallies now. When you get knocked down, you get back up. That is his mantra. It's part of his identity. It's what made him so successful. So do I blame him? I do a little bit, because I think what we're dealing with now is a different animal. Being knocked down before was related to setbacks, bad luck. It wasn't your time. Those things can all be overcome. Age, as we know, because you and I are sports fans, is undefeated.
It's undefeated.
It's age always it wins. And so I feel like if you have that job, you have to set up safeguards when you're older. And you have to either be looking for those things in yourself, or you have to have independent people that can come to you and you tell them.
But who are these people? That's what I'm asking.
I don't know.
You're the most powerful man in the world. A
trusted advisor, his wife,
the hand of the king. Who's the hand of the king?
Hunter
the problem is, the funny thing is, the hand of the king is Joe Biden, and she's telling him to go for it. That's the problem. So it's not just the president saying, I want to do this. His trusted advisor, his trusted hand is saying, what the hell? You're 82. Go out with a blaze of glory, my man.
You're right. And that is on them. But you know what? As you said, you can, even though I don't agree with it and I think they should make different choices, I can understand it.
All right.
So that leads me to the next thing, which is, okay, you give him some time and space, which I think is appropriate. I don't think he should have dropped out the day after the debate, although I would have been okay with it. I didn't expect it. Give the man time and space. But if you reach a certain point, and we're not quite there yet, I think another week or two and we will be there. I think at that point, then it's not on Biden anymore. Then it is on elected Democratic leadership. And so already you've had about 8 or 9 members of the House that have come out and said he shouldn't run. Many others, if you read the media reports behind closed doors, are saying he needs to get the hell out. And they're not exactly giving him ringing endorsements in public either. They're basically like, well, if he's the nominee, I'll support him. They need to go to him, like Republicans went to Richard Nixon in 1974, and just be like, I'm sorry, Joe, you got to go. You got to go. And if you don't go, it is a little bit different than Nixon.
That's a song.
What? Joe,
hey,
you got to go?
You got to go? Anyway. Anyway.
Wait, is that song?
I'm pretty sure. I think it's Lady Marmalade. Dude, that was so bad. I apologize. I just I was like, there's a squirrel over there. Finish your thought. I apologize.
I've lost. Now I'm thinking about Moulin Rouge and Nicole Kidman. I'm going down a dark whole path here. No, what I was saying is it's on the elected Democrats now. Yeah. The difference, of course, with Nixon was the Republicans who went to him, they had like the gun over
yeah, well, he
head,
committed a crime.
Which was like, we'll just vote. We'll just vote to convict you in the Senate, and then you'll have to leave anyway. Democrats don't really have that. Because the delegates are bound a majority to vote for Biden. Now, there is some talk that there's a clause that the delegates have like some clause where they maybe could get out of it, but most likely that wouldn't happen. But here's what you do. And you say, look, if you don't get out, we will go public with our concerns about your age and ability. Now, I recognize that's a hell of a thing to do. I mean, again, it's not a great spot.
Yeah.
What are you trying to do? Like the party... And especially the people elected by the American people, they have a responsibility that is bigger than Joe Biden. And again, I like Joe Biden. I voted for Joe Biden. I think he has been given our modern political constraints. You know, I use the analogy. This is an FDR in the 1930s with super majorities in the House and Senate, and the American public basically like do whatever you have to do because life's terrible, right? We live in a narrowly divided country where like what you actually can accomplish is in a pretty narrow band. Given that, I think he's had a very, very successful term. I think history will remember him kindly.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say. The economy's the stock market's at an all-time high. Unemployment is super low. Like crime is not bad. Like it's down across the board. And, you know, I know Trump paints it as, where at some kind of war or something. But
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. It's a shame that he can't even speak to those things,
Right.
which
He
is
doesn't.
what the real
And
core issue.
that's the point, is I think what some of his defenders miss is it's not about one bad night.
No, you got to communicate what you've
It's
succeeded at.
about, he has no chance to overcome what happened in that bad night. Like, if it had been one bad night, what you do is the next day, or at least 2 or 3 days later, you do a press conference for an hour and a half. You answer every question. You take not just one 22-minute interview with Stephanopoulos. You do interview after interview after interview. You answer everybody's questions. Here's another thing that the White House won't do. You take a cognitive test from an independent neurologist and you release it. This is what you do when you're an 81-year-old candidate and you lose your train of thought repeatedly in a debate, and you're most likely going to lose. That is the way you would have shown me in these last, what have we had, 11 days since the debate, that you could turn it around. If you would have done those things, maybe. But like, if you watch the White House briefing today, devolved into people. There was a Parkinson's expert who's been to the White House 8 times in the last 8 months. Now, we don't know if they've been there to see Biden. People come to the White House all the time for a variety of reasons. This same guy was there during the Obama administration. So I'm not saying this guy's treating, but the White House wouldn't answer directly if this person has met with Obama. They just say he doesn't have Parkinson's. This is what we're going to be talking about for the next 4 months if Biden's the nominee. And here's the thing. Trump is very beatable. If I watched, Kamala Harris has not been great. We all know that. I watched her in that CNN interview after the debate. She was very good in a very tough spot. I think she gives you a much better chance.
So how do you think this plays out? Brass tacks. Is he going to leave or not?
Up until today, I would have said yes. I would have put it at like 60 to 70%.
He's going to leave.
Right. But now when I heard him this morning on the Morning Joe, and they sent out that letter, and God, I think he doesn't. I think it's close to 50-50. I mean, the pressure is going to build. Here's the thing. If he has one more in the next week or two stumble, he's doing a press conference Thursday for the NATO at the conclusion of the NATO convention. That's something to watch. If there's any kind of reports that leak out about any kind of issues he has that he's hiding, like maybe this Parkinson's thing is something. If you see major Democrats come out, like any of those things could sink him. He's barely hanging on, is what I'm trying to say.
I think it's so incredible that you have a candidate that had an Access Hollywood tape that was grabbing people in their private parts and has been sued for hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's just basically, it was one gaffe after another, and just nothing ever sticks to him. Joe Biden gives, 52 years of service in the Senate and in the Oval Office. And, he poops his pants one night and all of a sudden he's got to leave. It's weird, man. Like, I know they're not correlated exactly, but I'm just saying, like, think about it from that perspective. You say, oh, if he messes up one more time, Trump has messed up 7,000 times. And that's a rough estimate, somewhere in that range. But nothing ever sinks him, no matter what he does. And it's weird. That's all I'm saying. I don't think politics works like it used to. I think part of me likes to think that maybe Biden is just like, well, the other guy just says to heck with it, so why don't I? It worked for him. Maybe it'll work for me.
I wish it did, but I think, you got to be strategic and you got to understand the moment. I will say this, Trump was beaten. And why was he beaten? He was beaten because Democrats got together in the spring of 2020, the elites, all the way down to the rank and file voters, and they made a choice about who would be the best candidate to defeat him, and they were right. It was Joe Biden, and Joe Biden did defeat him. We're in a similar moment now. The party has to. This is what. If this isn't what parties are for, what the hell are they for? The parties, this is
what they're for, to nominate the candidate.
Right. You've got to try again. You play to win the games. What gives you the best chance? You got to do everything you can, because here's the thing about Biden. And again, it is sad. And I do feel bad about what, but you know what would really tarnish his legacy is if it was clear to almost everybody that it was time for him to get out, and he stubbornly held on, and he gets the nomination, and then he loses. And the Democrats maybe also lose the House and the Senate because of that. They're probably going to lose the Senate anyway. And now Donald Trump next year not only comes into office with all of his acolytes and a Republican House and a Republican Senate and this conservative Supreme Court, and all now Trump is smarter in terms of how he's going to run things. And that is not good because he's not going to have
he's not going to make policy over Twitter to the Pentagon.
Well, he might. I don't think he cares about policy, but he's going to bring with him people who are true believers. There aren't going to be any establishment types to constrain him. And it's potentially, who knows, it would potentially be very bad. And then that becomes Joe Biden's legacy. That is what's on the line in 2024 for Joe Biden. And I don't know. Hearing him, back to your question, what do I think will happen? Up until today, I would have said I think it's a little bit more likely than not that he gets out. Now I think it's a little bit more likely than not that he stays in. He just seems so defiant and in a world that isn't reality. I mean, that's really what it is. It's a man who just does not come to terms with reality.
That's such hyperbole, but fine.
It's what?
I said it's hyperbole. I mean, to say that he's like detached from reality, it's just like this narrative.
He is. He is. The reality is he's losing. He's losing
no.
badly.
What do you think he thinks he's winning?
He says he is. He says he is. He says he's winning, or at least a toss-up, I think is what he said in George Stephanopoulos. And it sounded like he believed it. And it's just not true. It's just not true.
Based on polls.
Yeah, but
dude, my son showed me a poll the other day after the debate that had Trump at 89%. It was like some YouTube poll. Now, obviously, that's not credible, but it had 120,000 votes.
That's not,
so, whatever. So, but dude, we've been through this with polling, right? People lie all the time. I mean, in fact, that's the name of a book I'll recommend. It's called Everyone Lies.
Look, the polling could always be wrong. Couple points on that. First of all, if it's wrong, there's just as likely a chance it's wrong in a direction that favors Trump than the direction that favors Biden. So polling being wrong is not a winner necessarily. Number two, I would just say go back and look at 2016, 2020, 2022, 2018. All of those years, the polling was quite good. And in fact, in 2020, Joe Biden led. It was a stunning amount. Like in Real Clear Politics, I think they had around 250
538
polls.
Is the only one I care about.
Wow. But Real Clear Politics had around 250 polls in 2020. Two of them all year had Donald Trump winning. And Biden won the popular vote by 4.5. Now, Trump actually overperformed the margin. The margin was around 7-8, and he only lost by 4.5. But the point is, the polls were pretty close. They had the right candidate winning the popular vote. And, same thing even with Hillary in 2016. They had Hillary winning by about 4. She won the popular vote by 2.5. Now, of course, Trump won the Electoral College. But so this poll being wrong thing, I mean, yeah, it's possible, sure. But if that's what you're hanging your hat on, you've lost. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't disagree with that. My only point is that polls are not perfect. I mean, they have relevance. I understand that. I'm just saying they're not always, predicting the outcome. It's not 100%. No, but you're not wrong. If you can't,
and then the state, the problem too is it's not just the national polls. The state polls are very consistent with the national environment where Trump is up by 3 or 4, and because he's winning all of the swing states, most of them by pretty healthy margins. So everything is telling you a consistent.
Dude, I said on our first episode, you thought I was a crazy person. I told you Trump would win. Like, I mean, obviously we have a long way to go to November, but everything we're talking about now, you're not telling me something like I don't understand. I totally get it. And I think that it has honestly more to do with Trump and less to do with Biden. I don't think Biden is helping, but I think it mostly has to do with the cultish following that Trump has, that the Democrats simply do not possess in any meaningful way. I'm not saying there aren't hardcore Democrats. Sure, there are hardcore Democrats. Like I understand that, but it's not the same thing. It's just not, man. You laughed at me when I called Trump the Michael Jordan of politics. Like, I'm telling you, dude, the guy, whatever it is, he has it. And I know that's a cliche, but dude, he draws crowds. People
He
care about
does.
him.
Oh, look,
Like,
he's got good political skills. I mean, look, I think he's played it just in the last 10 days since the debate. He's gone very quiet, which is exactly the smart move. When your opponents are self-destructing, you shut the fuck up. And that's what he's been doing. Like, so I agree with you that look what he's done on abortion. I mean, there was just a story today about the Republican platform that they're going to officially unveil at their convention next week. Their platform used to call for a pro-life constitutional amendment that would define um, birth at the time of conception. They used to call for that. And now their abortion position, it looks like, is going to be more like, well, we'll just leave it to the states to decide,
yeah,
which is exactly what Trump wants them to do. So I agree with you. Trump has good political instincts, but let's not act like he's 10 feet tall. I mean, the man was beaten in 2020. He's ran for president twice. He's lost the popular vote both times. If you had a strong candidate in there, I'm not saying they'd be favored, but they'd be pretty close to a coin flip. Like, this guy has incredibly high unfavorable ratings. He has a mountain of problems. He has no real policy to speak of that he can defend. You saw that in the debate. Like,
yeah.
it is there. He is, he's got a kind of a glass jaw, but you have to hit him. That's the
Wow.
point. You got
I
to hit him.
disagree with you 100%. And this has always been one of my biggest disagreements with my Democrat and liberal friends is this idea. Like, I mean, we have underestimated Donald Trump since he said he was going to run for president. Why? I don't understand. Like,
well, I don't underestimate him. I don't underestimate him. I just think there's a decent chance to beat him with a good candidate. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's a certainty. I'm saying a decent candidate gives you somewhere near 50-50. Look, it's a tough environment for Democrats. We know, you and I have discussed it before. Everyone knows prices are up roughly 20% from where they were 3 years ago. They've come, inflation's come down a lot. It's hard to buy a house. Interest rates are high. Illegal immigration's been a problem. It's a tough mix for the incumbent party. There's no question about that. All right, Brian, moving on to the world of sports. Oh, by the way, this just because I have it up on my screen, because you were asking me what do I think will happen.
yeah.
So odds of becoming president, betting odds, which I like to follow this. This is from electionbettingodds.com. After the debate, Biden dropped from 35 to 20, and then a few days later dropped to 10. 10%, and Harris went up to 20, right? Now, Biden is back up to 20%, and Harris is back down to 9. So that tells you where the people are actually putting their money on this or going, which is what I said earlier, sadly, more of a chance that Biden actually will be the nominee. Brian, turning to the world of sports, this is like the ultimate dead period in sports.
It is.
July.
This is
NBA,
normally where we fix baseball.
Right. But no, baseball, they fixed it.
They did
it.
Congratulations. You fixed it.
And look, I am interested. I like the Olympics. I especially like the Summer Olympics, and Team USA basketball, men's and women's, will be really interesting. And I'm interested for that. I like the track and field events, the swimming, but that doesn't start for another 3 or 4 weeks. So I feel like there's really not much going on. Is there anything in sports that has caught your eye? I know you were big on the Copa America soccer tournament. You really were high on Team USA. I was going to watch.
Yeah.
Because you told me they were going to make it to the knockout round, and what happened? They didn't make it.
No, they didn't. They didn't make it. I mean, the Copa Americas and the Euros, I mean, it is the most popular sport in the world. I've come to really appreciate soccer. I don't consider myself a soccer fan in terms of, like, I don't follow a team or whatever. I do really enjoy Team USA. It's one of those sports where the margins are very thin and it can go either way. Like I said, they do have a top 10 team in terms of world
top
ranking.
10, like, world ranking. I know ranking. Like, I saw Alexi Lawless after they lost their last match, which eliminated them, and he was like apoplectic. Basically, like, what are we doing with this team that we can't be better than this heading into a World Cup in 2 years? Now they're talking about firing Berhalter, which it looked like they were going to do that maybe a year ago. They didn't do it. So I don't know. Everyone is panicking, it seems like, about Team USA soccer.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, they're likely going to make the World Cup since I don't know, we're hosting it.
Yeah, I think it's
So
automatic, actually.
yeah,
Like,
so you get an automatic bid, so it probably doesn't really matter. But yeah, no, I
aren't
was
we at
actually
the point there where we're like, we need to have some success here? I mean, I get it. I know we're not. I know these other countries have huge head starts on us. We
yes.
don't have the elite, the elite players in MLS in the world. Everybody knows that. But still, we're America, Brian.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Not to like completely transition, but since it is the dead period, we really didn't get to talk about it last week, and you're out there in Los Angeles. What do you think of Bronny James
Bronny James.
being picked by the Lakers?
You know, I think it's fine. I mean, like, to me, it's first of all, it's a end of the second round. The history of those players in the NBA are not usually good. There, you
No, they're
could,
not.
you have a Draymond Green or somebody like that here or there, but
Nikola
these are guys
Jokic,
who,
three-time MVP.
yeah, you have Nikola Jokic, but if you go back, it's like the odds are not great.
They're not great.
A late 50s draft pick overall is going to be an impact player. And from what I've read about Bronny, he actually did impress people because he was able to. He's a good defender, and he's improved his 3-point shooting. And we know if you can do those things, you can have at least a cameo in the league. So it's an end of the bench player. You have you make your superstar happy. He resigns with you, and you can make history with them playing together, which I'm
You
sure will
make a lot of
happen
money too.
early next season. Right. For a 14th or 15th guy on your roster, it's the smart move. I would have done the same thing if I were the Lakers. I see no problem with it. It's a good story. I hope. Look, Bronny, is he ready? No. I mean, he was in college for 1 year and missed a good chunk of
He
that
had
year
a heart
because
attack.
he had a cardiac arrest. But I think it's fine. I think it's a good story, and another way to make money and to make your team relevant. And who knows? Maybe he'll develop into something. The gene pool's good, at least.
Dude, my favorite part of the story has been the people on their high horse saying that like it wasn't earned, it's some type of you know, whatever.
Nepotism.
Yeah, nepotism for a kid. Here's the thing. There is a 1 billion% chance I would do this for my child if I could. Like
Right.
there's no doubt about it. Like this is me being as just open as I can possibly be. If I were in a position where I could get my kid a job and it's something like the NBA, 100%, no doubt, I would do it in an instant, in a heartbeat. I wouldn't care what anyone thought. I wouldn't care what anyone said. I would do it for my kid. I would. So this idea and like this notion that, it's yes, of course it's nepotism. I think if it was LeBron or Bronny Johnson and not Bronny James, I don't know that he goes to the Lakers, but he is Bronny James. And, if the other thing is, it's not like he's completely inept. Like he's
Right.
some type of
He
like
was a McDonald's All-American.
I
Like, he
know.
was
I'm
a
just thinking like
well-thought
people
of
take
prospect.
flyers on like 7'4" French
Right.
guys all the time. I mean,
Right.
he's
Why not?
7'4". Like, what? Let's see what happens. Like, I don't know. Maybe he'll get a hook shot and be Kareem. Like, anyway, I think it's a really interesting story. Not so much for the story itself, though that is fascinating. I think the reaction to it for me has been particularly interested, and I always. It's kind of like people that say like, "Oh, if I was Dominican, I would have never done steroids and cheated in Major League Baseball." Are you serious? So you're from the Dominican Republic, one of the poorest countries in the world, and you inject yourself with steroids, you make hundreds of millions of dollars and give your family generational wealth. I don't give a crap what anyone thinks of me. If I'm Sammy Sosa, good for me, dude. I would have been out of the league, but I took some juice. I made over $100 million. I have money for myself and my family in the perpetuity. How do you blame someone for doing that? And I, like I said, I hate it when people can't look at a situation, put themselves in that position, and then view it objectively. They always take this moral stance. It's like the idea that if someone else commits a crime, they should go to jail for life. But if I commit a crime, well, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. It's the same circumstance. It's just it's amusing to me that people put that out there like it's believable. It's not.
All right, Brian, without further ado, let's get to what I really wanted to talk about this week. It wasn't Joe Biden or
Ah,
soccer or
yeah,
Bronny
Bronny
James. It
James.
was House of the Dragon. You and
Woo!
episode 4 last night. You and I have talked about it. I love the first 3 episodes, but we were all kind of like, okay, when's it going to start? When are we going to see the battles? We
It
finally
started.
saw our first dragon on dragon battle with episode 4. Give me your thoughts.
I mean, no fellatio this episode, a little disappointed. But aside from that one note, I mean, I was shocked by the ending, which I think was the entire point. I didn't have Aemond taking out Aegon with a flame. I didn't have him certainly, killing him on the ground. He did not, for to note it, but he
Yeah,
was going.
spoiler alert. I
Spoiler
think
alert.
I think I'm a little late on the spoiler
Yeah,
alert.
it's fine. If
Yeah.
people listen to the show, they know they got to
Well,
watch.
tell people what happened in that climactic scene at the end.
So
where
in the
dragons
climactic
fought.
scene, a inebriated Aegon, after his mother told him to do what he's supposed to do, which is absolutely nothing, decides, you know what? I'm going to drink a few bottles of wine and hop on a dragon and support the battle. But what he doesn't know is that Aemond and Christian Cole had set it up intentionally. So they wanted Vagar, which is the biggest dragon, this Aemon's dragon. They wanted to get him in the mix at Rook's Rest, so he could take out the princess and Meleys, her dragon, because Meleys is the biggest dragon that the Blacks have. So anyway, long story short, it unfolds much like I just said. However, Aegon just comes in like a man possessed, tries to take on Meleys. That doesn't go well. Meleys defeats Sunfire. Sunfire falls to the ground, but not before Aemond comes in and tries to set everyone on fire,
including his brother, who's the king.
Yeah, his brother, who's the king.
Trying to do a 2-for-1, take out his enemy. Is it Rhaenyra?
Right.
No. What was her name? What's her name? The lady who died.
She's just a bad bitch, whatever her name is.
Yeah, Rena or something.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Anyway,
she's great.
She dies then later.
Yes.
When Vagar
she should have
dragon.
fled, but she decides to turn around to fight.
Oh.
And Vagar is just he's too big, man. He's the biggest and the baddest dragon on the block, and he did his thing. So we finally got to see dragons fight, I think, is like the moral of the story. But more importantly, we lost a beloved character. And what I didn't see coming was Aegon being what appears to be critically wounded. And I also didn't see him being taken out by his brother.
Yeah, I think the show, they executed, I thought, the first 3 episodes of the season really well. And a lot of that was just politics and drama. But this one, they executed really well. And this was the one that really mattered because this was that big event. First time we've seen dragons fighting. And man, they just nailed it. They nailed that whole scene. The stakes. I love the way this season's playing out. I love how you're getting emotionally invested in the characters. It was sad to see.
Well, that's what I mean. Like I did love the character of Rhaenys. Like she was a great character. She very well acted. They gave her some just really good. It's a good role. I think that's important. It's a well written role, but the actress who plays her, and pardon me, I don't know her name.
Like it's Eve somebody. I'll check that. I'll effort that.
But I mean, it's funny because this is what I liked about Game of Thrones. I like Ned Stark, and all of a sudden his head's on the chopping block. I like right. Princess Rhaenys in House of the Dragon, and there she goes, never to be seen or heard from again. Like Eve it rips best. Your heart out. Yeah.
She's great. And if you watch the show, she's nicknamed the Queen Who Never Was because she could have been the queen, and they passed her over because she was a chick. It's sad. So yeah, you're right. But in terms of like tactical decisions, she could have fled. She didn't. She went back for more. Also, I feel like Rhaenyra, they walked right into that trap. If they were going to go in, they should have sent in like they have what, like 5 dragons. They should have sent in like 3. It's like just in case the dragon's there, right? Like send them in.
Yeah, that really doesn't help move the plot forward, but I understand what you're saying tactically. I mean, I do on all of these shows. Sometimes I really do question the decisions some of the characters make, but I'm obviously viewing it with the benefit of the hindsight. You're sending essentially one dragon to fight against an entire army. And I do like how In Game of Thrones, dragons were presented, at least at the beginning, as almost like nuclear bombs.
Yeah.
They were like these undefeatable weapons that could not be defeated. And then towards the end of the show, like all of a sudden they're being plucked out of the sky by arrows. It was a weird
Right.
transition.
It
But I do
was.
think that one thing the House of the Dragon has done really well is shown that dragons, while they are very powerful weapons, they are not invulnerable
Right.
to weaponry and armies. Certainly they're the best weapon you have, but it's not the be all end all.
I thought it was really well done. I love how this season, the show I think was a little bit set up as kind of, it's Team Black versus Team Green, right? And it seemed like, okay, it's kind of, I get it, and that's fine, and it still could be a good show. But I think what's really taken it to another level is now within each house, the dissension. You mentioned Aegon and Aemon and how they built that up over time.
Yeah.
We know why they don't like each other. We've seen it. We understand it. It's not just, oh, I'm jealous of my brother because he's the king. We see that build up over time. We know why Aegon is so tortured with the way his mother talks to him, his sense of inferiority. And on the other side, we know enough now about Rhaenyra and what drives her and her husband slash uncle, Matt Smith's character, Daemon, and what drives him. And so now it's not just as simple as, well, it's Team Black versus Team Green. Each house now has dissension and plotting within it. And that's always what made Game of Thrones so good, is there wasn't a lot of clear delineation between like who was quote unquote good and bad. Everyone kind of had to some degree mixed motives. And so I love that is what we're seeing now in season 2 of House of the Dragon. That adds, I mean, look, it would be a fine show if it were simpler too, but what takes it to another level is the depth of these characters now and their interactions and the internal dissension in each house. I'm just loving this season, man.
The acting in the show is phenomenal. Like Larys Strong.
Isn't he great? Oh,
Larys,
he had a great scene with Alicent.
I've never seen him in anything else. I don't know where they got him from, where they stole him from, but I can't. It's like the characters on Game of Thrones. The thing I loved about it, and it's impossible not to compare the shows, is that I couldn't imagine anyone else playing the characters. Right. Like that's sometimes what I think makes great characters, is when you can't imagine another actor coming in and doing well. Yeah. So I use Larys as an example, but whether it's Aemond or Aegon or Queen Alicent or Rhaenyra, like they all just, dude, it's so fantastic. They do such a great job acting in the show. And like I said, the writers give them so much, great material to work with, obviously, but the acting, and I mentioned Larys in particular because every time he comes on screen, all I can think of is him jerking off to Alicent's feet. Like that image haunts me, years later. It's unbelievable.
Oh, wait, he was doing more than just rubbing them, right? Because wasn't he rubbing them in one scene?
I don't think he was rubbing her feet. I think she just like took her socks off and then he went to town.
Yes. Yeah, which made their scene, it was so good with the undertone of, he obviously knows what's going on with her.
She's very huffy, which I'm really enjoying that. Like Larys is there and she's like, like, oh my God, this guy.
His name is Matthew Needham.
He's perfect.
That's the actor that
he's so good.
He's a stage and screen guy from London.
Song and dance band.
Yeah. So I love it. I am totally bought in, and I'm ready for more. I did have one other plot question before we move on. You may know this. So Rhaena, the character who died, Eve Best, who's phenomenal. So when she goes to her husband,
Corlys, sure.
The sea snake, right? Is that what a sea snake?
Yeah.
So, and in the scene where there's a younger gentleman who saved the sea snake at battle. Apparently, this happened off screen, but they told us about this. He pulled him out of the water, right? Yeah. So she goes up to this guy and touches his face and says, "Your mother must have been beautiful," or something like that. So I assume
it's his bastard son.
Bastard. Yeah, I assume that's what that
and
meant.
She's basically saying, like, hey, he saved your life. So, like, why not get him out into the open?
That's a forgiving
wife. All pissed off. Like, did you come here to lecture me? like whatever. And she's like, no, I'm telling you, like, it's the right thing to do. Like, that's why she's such a great character.
That's a forgiving wife, by the way. Like if you had a bastard son,
Different times, Eric.
would you would your wife be like, you know what, Brian? Bring your
I know our
bastard
wives
son
would not
home."
forgive us. How about that? I wouldn't try and pull a sea snake if I were you, my friend.
Okay, all right, good to know. Do you have anything else before we move on in House of the Dragon?
I got nothing else on House of
All
the
right.
Dragon. I mean, I'm excited for episode 5. I guess just remember these are 8 episode seasons, so
Oh,
we're halfway through, which is incredible.
God, they really did it well, man, with the CGI, with everything of the battle. Because having the dragons is one thing, but executing it so that we know exactly what's going on, it was really
I mean,
well done.
you agree with me though. This is HBO's tent pole show.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
I mean, over the years, they've
Absolutely.
had so many amazing shows. We don't have to go through the whole list, but The Wire, The Sopranos. I mean, some of the greatest television shows ever made. I mean, I think HBO, more than for the movies that they replay after they've been out of the theater, is really known for their original television. And, I think part of the reason is, and they've committed to it, they've spent the money on it, and they've made it a great show. And honestly, like, I'm not into Euphoria. I watch some I watch Bill Maher, obviously, some from time to time. And last week tonight with John Oliver. But aside in terms of original programming, um they like, this is their tentpole. This is what everything
Oh
is
yeah.
built upon.
Well,
So
and it's look, Warner Brothers Discovery now, look, just like many big movie TV companies, they're struggling, and the transition to streaming has been tough. And so you need a hit like this with a massive audience it brings in, and the critical acclaim is huge for the whole company
yeah.
beyond just HBO, which of course now they just branded everything, as Max. All right, Brian, any other reviews this week?
I'm still chugging along in The Boys. I'm 2 episodes into season 4. It's magical, and I strongly recommend that you check it out for the 1,000th time. I would like to ask you about The Acolyte and how disappointed you were
Oh, I
made
don't
in
even
the
want to
show.
talk. Yeah, I don't even want to talk about it anymore. I
I know
mean,
you
look,
don't want to talk
I'm
about it
hate
anymore, but I
watching.
enjoy coming to you every week and just hearing how horrible it is. I
It's
don't know
so
why.
bad.
It's like
Uh,
a train wreck. I need to
eh,
I need to
it,
know.
I
I need to
just
see it.
we talked about last week how I just can't believe the backlash to the backlash about the show, because if you just watch it objectively, and every week I kind of hope, well, maybe it'll get better. And look, the episodes are only 30 minutes and there's only 8 of them, I think. I think we've had 6 so far. So that's why I keep watching. If these were
It's 30
hour-long
minutes.
episodes, right, or they were like 20, I would have bailed a long time ago. But I did want to talk about a good show,
Okay,
which I
cool.
actually do like, is The Bear. So
Oh, it's The Bear is back.
The Bear is back. Season 3 came out a few weeks ago. All 10 episodes of season 3 are on Hulu. I have made it through 5. So I don't want to talk about the show
Like
completely
plot
because,
points, etc.
yeah, right. I'll get into that. I'll do a full review of the show when I watch the other 5. But what I do want to talk about is why I like the show so much. And the thing about The Bear, and look, so far, and that's the caveat, I don't like season 3 as much as season 2. Like season 1 was pretty good. I'd say 8 out of 10. Season 2 was a 10. It was
Oh
10 out of
wow.
10. Season
You
3
don't,
is
and so people know you don't give out a lot of
no,
tens.
no.
You're a 9 guy, as we've discussed. You like the 9 grade. So a 10 for you is
A
high
10
praise.
is very high praise. So this season so far is more like season 1, which is still good, but not the highs of season 2. But I was thinking about this. Like, here's the thing about The Bear is it's one thing to have a show that's well acted and there's certain like technical aspects of making great television that we all know.
Yeah.
And so The Bear does have that, has all of those things. But what makes it so good is the emotion, right? That I just love the way I feel when I watch it.
Oh wow.
And I was thinking, why do I love this show so much?
That's art.
I don't really cook, although I do love restaurants, but
Hmm.
that's kind of what the show is quote unquote about. But just like any great show, The Sopranos was about the mafia, right? But it's really about a lot more than that. And
Yeah,
that's
sure.
what makes the show so good is the way I feel. I just love spending time in that world with those characters. And I love
That's high praise.
and that's what the show just nails it. And again, and that's even with me not quite liking this season as much as the heights I think, of season 2. And The Bear, it just has a way of sucking you in, man. And they do such a phenomenal job. In fact, I was thinking about it, what TV shows have held the belt? If you followed professional wrestling when you were a kid, or boxing or MMA, there's one champion at a time, right?
Well, you have the Intercontinental Champion
Well, yeah, I
from
guess you
time
have
to
different weight
time.
classes, but imagine
Tag team,
there was a TV belt,
female
right?
champion.
I think Sopranos, in my opinion, is the greatest show ever. And that started in 1999. So I think that had the belt until it ended. Then I think you can make an argument because Breaking Bad started in '08 and The Wire ended in '08. So I think you can make an argument there. I probably would have given it to The Wire for the last season, then Breaking Bad until 2013 when it ended. Then I think you can make an argument between Game of Thrones, which was in the third, fourth season, or that last couple seasons of Mad Men.
I was gonna say Mad Men deserves a mention here.
I would probably give it to Mad Men for the last few seasons, then Game of Thrones, then Succession. After Succession left, I was thinking about this the other day. What show, and I don't watch a ton of shows, despite what we talk about on here, other than crappy Star Wars shows. So I don't watch everything. But The Bear, to me, grabbed the belt last summer, was season 2, and is holding it now. We'll see if they can continue to hold it. But I think The Bear, if you have to watch, especially someone like you who likes, you don't have to love cooking and food to like the show.
Well, I love both of those things.
But I think it helps. I think it helps. And I think you would absolutely love it, especially, like I said, season 2. So, all right, that's my kind of, I'll give the full review of the season after I watch the whole thing. But those are my initial thoughts.
It's funny right now. It says I did a little Google search on Rotten Tomato. The 25 most popular shows right now. Number 1, The Acolyte.
Ugh. I don't know what people.
It's incredible.
Well, popular doesn't translate to quality. We know
to good.
That. All right, Brian.
That's
any
true.
Parting thoughts this week?
I do. If you will just entertain me for 5 to 10 minutes here, I want to talk about my travels to the city of Baltimore, Maryland today. I mentioned this to you earlier on a text message that I was in the great city of Baltimore, Maryland.
Yes.
Dude, I have never been so sad in my entire life. And it gave me a little bit more thought onto perhaps what Donald Trump was talking about. And what I mean is that, and our listeners may not know me that well, but I'm not a fearful person. I've gone to plenty of places that are not ideal in terms of their safety. Baltimore today was the first time in many, many years where I was taken aback by the overall state of the city. There was probably a solid mile of just abandoned houses and people openly using drugs. I have never seen, and I was there in the middle of the day. This is 3:00 in the afternoon. I mean, it was like the night of the living dead, except during the day. And it honestly depressed me. To the point where I spent some time. I bought one guy a Whopper because I was like, dude, even drug addicts need to eat, man. You need some meat on these bones, eat some meat. He seemed grateful. I don't know. But my larger point is that I think number one, and this is the most important thing I wanted to mention, is it made me feel very fortunate for where I grew up in Altoona, Pennsylvania. In terms of having a loving family and being in a community of people that love and support each other and want the best for each other and value education and all those type of things, because it really, what it made me think about the most is how are children going to ever make it out of there? You mentioned The Wire, and if you've never seen The Wire, please watch it, because I've never seen a show, and I'm sure they exist, but for me, that is so grounded in the reality of the situation on the ground. I actually told my wife the thing that The Wire doesn't do well is show the scale. Because in a camera shot, you can only capture a block. You can only give one scene. You can only paint the picture of what it looks like. But driving through that city today, the scale of the drug use and the poverty, it was striking to me. And to be clear, and again, not to make it about me, you know this, Eric, I'm a well-traveled guy. The first time I came to LA and I got into the cab driver asked me where I wanted to go. I told him I wanted to go to Skid Row. He's like, "Are you sure you don't want to go to the Chinese theater?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm positive, dude. Take me to Skid Row because I want to see like what communities are, how they exist. Like I feel like I need to experience these things so I can have, I don't know, opinion that's worth something." And it made me look into Baltimore today. They've been under Democratic leadership since 1967. I mean, that is a long time. I'm not a math whiz, but that's narrowly 60 years of a single party in power. And what have they done? That place. No, don't get me wrong. I don't want to just crap on Baltimore. I'm from Maryland. I love Maryland. I'm a proud Marylander. And there are some great parts of Baltimore if
The
you
Inner
don't
Harbor's
leave like
nice.
an eight block radius. But outside of that, that city, dude, it is sad. It's really sad. And I don't have any other thoughts, and I don't even know where to begin to try and fix it because the history there, when you look into the history of Baltimore City and what has occurred there, I don't know that it is fixable. I mean, you lived in St. Louis for a while. I would
Yeah.
compare St. Louis or Detroit similarly in terms of like white flight, the distrust of law enforcement and the police force, just high taxes, which is crazy because I mean, cities like I'm talking about in Baltimore, they have no choice. They have to raise taxes because they need the revenue to like keep things operating. But I just thought to myself today, who would want to live here
Yeah.
in their right mind? The people there, dude, I felt so bad. They're trapped there. It's crazy. So I don't know why I became so emotional about it. I texted you. I called my wife. I was genuinely sad.
Yeah. Well, and it is sad. We talked about The Wire. That was the early 2000s. So here we are. It ended in '08. So we're almost 20 years later. And yeah, those things are still issues.
The
No doubt
one thing
about
that
it.
I did discover in my little bit of air quote research, I hate that term, but when I was kind of looking in what happened to Baltimore is they are going to make a follow up to The Wire called I Own the City. That's a show that's currently in development. So that'll be interesting. Same writer.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, it came out. It came out.
oh, it did. I got to
It
check
was
that
really
out.
good. Yeah, it was not nearly as good as The Wire.
It wasn't as
No,
good as The
nowhere
Wire.
close. But
Okay.
it's definitely worth watching.
I'm going to check it
Yeah,
out.
yeah, it's worth watching for sure. And they talk a lot about, they really get into a lot of the issues, even more so, I think, than The Wire did, of like really what is going on and what is holding people back and why some of the things exist the way they do with the government and the police and the community. Yeah, it's worth watching for sure. But no, that was good. Thank you for sharing, and thank you guys for listening. For Brian Johnson, I'm Eric Messersmith. We hope you enjoyed the show, but if not, please take no offense.